Hello and welcome to The Art of Growth. I'm Jim Zartman.
And I'm Joel Hubbard.
Here we go.
Here we go. Yeah, so the other day I was coaching a client who was describing a really difficult situation to me. Painful. And she said, now she comes from a Christian background, so she's saying, I'm trying to understand the purpose and the meaning of this difficult situation that came into my life. And I'm trying to understand it from a perspective of what was God's plan or purpose in this. Right? And there must be a plan. There must be a purpose. There must be a reason. Yeah. And then starts, trying to come up with it and create it. And I accidentally started smiling. Those moments where you realize on Zoom your face is smiling and you're like, crap, I got to say something because
I'm giving something away.
Yeah, exactly. They might be misreading that. So smiling, and then I just jumped in and I said, I have a different take on that. And so she starts laughing and she says, give it to me. Yeah. And that started into this whole thing that I want to talk about, which is moving from the why to the what. Mm-hmm. And it was very helpful to her. She loved it. It really moved her kind of getting unstuck from the why. Actually, the why is my domain as a head type. I live in the why. Yeah. And
why is this happening? Why? The understanding what's behind it, where did this come from, the origins, the perspectives on all the things. That's all when we say the why, we mean all of the surrounding things, the meaning, the behind the scenes, some of that stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely meaning. I think, sure, there's the why that's sort of like, can I see the pattern of this and so see the cause of something maybe, and we all do that. But I think I would find myself at my worst, like looking for meaning in areas that and you can end up in a real hole mentally, depressed and kind of forever trying to understand difficult situations.
Because if you can't understand it and you feel like you have to, the mind is a meaning-making machine. Mm-hmm. And so we will create a why. Yeah. And if left to our own devices, sometimes that why is actually extremely negative, or it comes from our type. It tells us like what's wrong with us. It can tell us a lot of different stories. We can make up stories that are really negative about the why. I must have done something wrong. There's something wrong with me.
Oh, yeah.
There's something wrong with them because now I have to put the why on you externally, because that's a lot of times the interpretation mechanism. It wants to either dole out the responsibility on myself and shame or on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really well said. Some of the best I've heard deal with difficulty and seek meaning have said, I realize what I'm doing. Like I need this meaning for now. And that is totally understandable. Yeah. Great. Hold on to, do what you can during this season. But then there's a movement towards deepening that practice. And for me, that deepens through the what question, and so you can stay in the why for too long. Like, why did this happen? Why is this? And try to find the meaning to it. And there's a helpful movement to my mind of getting to the question of the what, which is, kind of what I shared with her was, if you could imagine for a moment and just come in this space with me, and instead of asking yourself these questions, you were to start asking yourself a different set of questions. Like, what is happening here? What is being birthed in the midst of this difficult situation that I've gone through? What did I see in me that I can celebrate? And the interesting thing was to watch as her eyes sort of lit up and she could name some of those things. Like on the heels of this, not in the middle of it, I couldn't have done it, but on the heels of it, I can start to see some of these things that were coming through. Mm-hmm. And where are you at now? I asked her, I feel like you've got a strength that about this, like you've got this determination to move forward. And she said, I do. I have that. And I still have my own stories that are self-limiting, but I also have this sense of strength that's been birthed from this. So the what questions really gave a different way of engaging with that, that situation, that difficult situation that she'd gone through.
Yeah. The why can feel disempowering to me at times. If I have to understand it before I do it, I can get really stuck. I can get really disempowered because sometimes the why is unanswerable. We want to understand first and do second. Yeah. But sometimes we have to do first and understand second. We have to live into our what before we're capable of understanding our why.
Yeah.
So many times I see people get stuck in that very place. And I was telling you this story about a client as well, and I'll change the details to protect the identities. But a guy who needed to complete this film. He had this film and it had been accepted and there was a distributor for it. Everything was ready to go. Had done all this prep work to have it be ready to be made. And all he had to do was make it, and then the rest of the details were worked out. It would be sold, it would be distributed, all of that was good to go. All of it. But it had been 5 years of not working on it, being stuck in it, and trying to figure out, why am I not getting this done?
Yeah, there's the question again.
Yeah, so that's the why, because I need to figure out what's wrong. If I can figure out why I'm not getting it done.
Yeah, that's the key, right?
That's what we believe.
Yeah.
See, that's where we get stuck. We believe if I can figure out why I'm not getting this done, then I'll be able to solve that why. Yeah. Then I can get on to the what.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with him and just being like, sometimes that why question is really important. Sometimes you need to unearth things in yourself. And that's usually what that exploration does. It doesn't actually give you the real reason, but you understand yourself more. It's part of that self-knowledge component that we talk about in our coaching. It's very important at times. I said, but right now, you do not need to know why you're not doing it. You just need to do it. And I said, you're trying to figure out why you're not doing it is proxy fulfillment for actually doing the work. You get a sense of satisfaction. You get a sense of, I'm actually accomplishing something by trying to figure out why I'm not accomplishing it.
Yeah, boy, that's another form of bypassing, isn't it?
It's a huge form of bypassing. Yeah. If I focus on this, then I'm not actually having to do the thing, which will put me more in public eye.
To do the thing.
It's terrifying to do the thing. What if it doesn't work?
Right.
What if it gets rejected? What if nobody responds to it? There's a ton of risk in putting yourself out there and actually doing the what.
Yeah.
So this person felt like they needed to work through the why first. I said, no, you don't. You just need to do the what. The why will come on the back end of it for you. It's not the answer I'm always going to give everyone, but for you right now, you know that. Yeah. And 6 months later, it's now going into distribution.
Wow.
It did it.
Yeah.
Got it done. It's ready to go. It's going out there.
Yeah.
And soon it will be available to the world.
Yeah.
But it was that stuck place of like believing that I have to figure out the why in order to do the what. And I like how you put it when we were first talking about this. Your why is killing your what.
Yeah.
That's very succinct. We'll probably call the episode that. Your why is killing your what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you touch on something really important, which is with the bypassing piece that, there's a fear to doing the thing that is ours to do. And in the imagination of all sorts of like, well, I could go wrong, I could fail, I could, it won't be as good as I had hoped it would be.
That one kills me a lot. Yep. Yeah. That one does.
There's a ton of stuff.
What if it's not worth it?
Yeah. 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 What if nobody likes it? Nobody cares about it?
Yeah.
And so, that can paralyze us. And those are sort of like what questions, but they're the wrong what questions, Mm-hmm. The right what questions are, what is mine to do?
Yeah.
And what is it that I know that I like to do, that I want, that this is true of me, regardless of the outcomes, this is true of me. And those what questions, so it's really discerning what are the right questions to be asking yourself. There's all sorts of ones that we ask that are not helpful. Like you said, the why questions are like, why am I stuck? Yeah. Why is this not happening? Yeah. Why is it? And then, the bad what questions. What if this thing fails? What if nobody likes it? What if it's not as good as I hoped it would be? All these questions that we ask ourselves that are just so unhelpful. And when we move to the right questions of what is mine to do, regardless of what happens on the other side? What
is my right next step?
Yeah.
It's one of the best questions. Because I always talk about how I think it's terrible to ask a 19-year-old who's going off to college, what do you want to do with your life?
Yeah, right.
It's a
paralyzing
cruel question.
Yes.
And how many people do we know that they got stuck in jobs? They thought they wanted to do something because they liked the idea of the product, but not the process.
Well, that's a huge distinction as to whether this is you or not you.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a million of those stories personally.
Oh gosh, I have so many of those.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my dream for years, was to be a film composer. I remember like being in middle school, working a landscaping job and listening to film scores and being like dreaming about what it'd be like to put the film scores together. And then I did my first 2 films. And after the second one, I'm sitting in the theater, my name comes up and it disappears. And I went, huh. You know, I don't actually like sitting alone in a room for 9 hours a day for 3 months straight.
Yeah.
I don't like, very small percentage of that is actually fun for me. I do like the creative process, but the span of time and how much time you sit alone, I was like, that can't be my whole life.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of the product, the final thing, but I didn't actually enjoy as much of the process. And if I wasn't like working closely with the director, or he'd pop down to my office regularly and I wasn't having those human interactions, I don't think I would have really enjoyed it. Yeah. So there's so many things like that people go off and they're like, well, I love the idea of being this. Yeah. And so I go to school for that because someone said, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, well, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then you realize one of the nightmares in life is being stuck with someone else's dream.
You know, this is awesome. This podcast is going in a different direction. It's just really fun. But to my mind, like, process is so key to understanding purpose, because otherwise, if you start off with like, what's my purpose? Asking that 19-year-old, like, what are you supposed to be doing? What do you want to do with your life? You know, and if we ask that question, and the answer in their mind is very much that outcome, that big goal, that big dream of like, people love me, I'm doing something amazing on this earth. You know, I've got whatever it is. I've got this lots of money I'm making. You know. We have these outcomes that we think, if I get there, that will be so fulfilling.
Yeah.
But process, that to me now has shifted to being, that's meaning. That's purpose right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, if I'm doing something and as I'm doing it, I'm realizing this is definitely for me to be doing. It's not that it's not that I love every aspect of it. Sure. There are parts of it I dislike a lot. But while I'm doing it, I know this is mine to do. And there's not a question in my mind as to whether that's true. It's just, oh, I don't like this, but boy, this is just like writing. So I told you I hate writing, right? So I'm writing this book that's taken me forever to write. Right. But I'm chipping away at it. I keep working at it. I keep doing it. I don't like the process one single bit. But I have no doubt this is mine to do. And when I do it, there's a sense of depth. There's a sense of richness. So those I attribute to like, okay, that's helpful to me to know if I'm doing the right thing. When I do, like, we just did this whole kitchen thing that we're doing and emptying out cabinets till midnight last night. There's nothing about that I like. Not the process, nothing, not a single thing about it.
Right.
The only thing I could do was use that for like, you know, like a discipline of staying present as a 7, you know, and my wife is a 6, staying like, you know, not getting too crazy and anxious. But both of us were like, okay, we got to work really hard on ourselves, right? But there are those things that are so clear. Process. Is the process revealing to me that this is mine to do?
Right.
And by doing that and not being so anxious and concerned about the outcome, does everybody like it? Now the outcome has shifted for me now. It's still outcome in the sense that, am I living out what I'm supposed to be living out? Do I feel like I'm truthful and putting out my gift to the world, my contribution to the world? And is the world receiving it? Do people like it? Are people being, I'm not talking about millions. I'm talking about, is there enough people that are saying, yes, I like this and this is meaningful to me, that it makes my job feel like not only do I love doing what I'm doing, but other people like it.
Yeah.
For me, that's the outcome that I seek, but not the outcome that I used to seek, which is trying to scratch that inner itch that I can't get to. And that, I think, is oftentimes what causes people to live in that sort of like outcome in the future. Like, if I get there, then I'll feel fulfilled.
Well, I think that's trying to scratch the why. So there's so many things where I wanted a certain outcome, and the passion was for the outcome. And so the outcome is like, it's a little bit of the why. It's projecting, it's trying to understand this like obscure thing.
Yeah.
And so it was trying to scratch the itch of the why. The best things of my life, it was where I was more passionate about the process than I was the outcome. The things with the greatest payoff, there was more passion in the process than there was in the outcome.
Do you have an example of that? Like something that you do as a process that works for you?
Yeah. If someone would have told me years ago, like, you're going to be a coach, you're going to coach people, I would have been like, no. I didn't like the idea. It sounded pretentious. Like, there's a lot of things that I don't like about it. There's like this coach culture of like, there's a little guru-y thing about it of like someone, it feels hierarchical, or I know something you don't. So everything about it like turns me off. But the actual process of sitting with someone and like we're figuring something out together, I love the process. I always finish a call with someone being like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was cool. So many times with music, I actually loved practicing. So many people, they just wanted to be on stage. I'm like, but if you don't actually love practicing, you'll never really get that payoff of like being on stage. And the size of the audience never determined the amount of pleasure I got out of anything when it came to playing music. Playing my piano at home and playing old like Billy Joel songs or something is just as fun for me as being on stage, like in front of people. Like I love the process of playing, regardless of the product or the outcome. The process itself is the reward. I love writing because there's this thing where you walk around being like, nobody knows this thing I've got. Even if nobody ever sees the song, there's this payoff of like, I have this thing, you know, and the process of that is very pleasurable to me. Sometimes the bigger projects I have a harder time with because I'm like, I know I'm going to end up throwing some kind of expectation at this, which actually can diminish my own pleasure of it. And so I'm still working through that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is why I think, you know, even the And I Would Lift You book that I put out, it was very much a accidental, spontaneous, like, oh, here's these things that I always say. They've come up on podcasts or wherever else. And there's a collection of them. I just passed it off to someone else and they did all the editing and the artwork. And so it's just like, oh, I have a finished thing so I can put it out there. But it still felt weird to me. Because what if it does really well? What if it doesn't do anything? Like both are terrifying, right?
But doesn't that wake up? Don't you think it wakes up that inner need that all types have? Like whenever you do anything big, it's impossible for that core need not to show up again.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, sure, because that's big. That's huge. Putting something out there. Oh my gosh, I'm exposed, you know, and I'm putting my stuff out there and it's going to do that.
Especially if you really put yourself out there and put stuff out vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've definitely put out stuff that was curated vulnerability more than actual vulnerability.
Yeah.
But since we've started doing all this work, it's been actual vulnerability, and that is so much harder.
Oh my gosh.
Like I constantly have like vulnerability hangovers from these things. I'm glad I don't edit them anymore because like I was tempted to cut out things that I said earlier on when I was editing.
Do more editing of yourself.
I would do more editing of myself because I was like, oh, I don't know if I want that. And then being like, ugh, I gotta like let it go. And then when I'd hit the send button on the podcast, I'd be like, oh no.
Yeah. Here it goes. That's a big part of the reason why I haven't listened to, I'm going to do this season, Driven to Drawn, that we just completed. I'm going to go through all of it and re-listen to all of it. But that's been a big reason why I haven't. I like this idea of if we put ourselves out there in a big way where it's really vulnerable, it's going to wake up that, you know, no matter how much work you've done on yourself, if you're being truthful with yourself, it's going to wake up that core fear that we all have, each of us has. Yep. And that's not a bad thing. That's just, okay, there it is again. I'm creating these expectations around this. The expectation is not the problem. It's the expectation starts to go towards more of that need, that core need, that core fear that we have. And instead of going back to, my expectation is I want to give something.
Mm.
And my hope is that people are touched by this. People are helped by this in some way. And if both of those can happen at the same time, boy, I'm just thrilled to pieces.
Yeah.
And, you can walk away from that and, feel free from that. But it's a practice because it's not always the feeling. Again, particularly as you move towards things that are more vulnerable. So each time I do something that's more vulnerable, more, we did this certification course that we just completed.
Yeah. Awesome.
I had the butterflies.
Oh, I'll bet.
And I had the old messaging that came.
This first
oh
thing?
yeah, and
like,
old messaging came back to me, and I'm like, man, I just thought I dealt with that, But it does. It comes back,
but that's what I love, because you didn't let the whys or those past messages kill your what. That this is my next right thing to do.
I knew it was my next right thing.
Yeah.
I had this sense of, and when I say I know, I sound so absolute. I know to somewhere like 70% or 80%. I don't ever get to 100% knowing.
For sure.
But I get to 60, 70, 80% around there. And for me, I feel like if I can get there, that's good enough for me to know that this is the next step that I need to take. Yeah. And it's not that I know that this is the next 25 steps I need to take. I just know it's the next single step I need to take, even if then there's a complete course redirection.
Yep.
Which is a very difficult way to live, because it means that you have to be flexible, nimble. You have to be responsive to the path. You have to kind of go with the direction that life is moving at, that the path is moving you in. But that's what the next right step means, is you take the next right step, and, rather than living in anticipation of, did I figure it all out in advance, or, regret, thinking maybe I messed something up. You're living in the present, and you're living with, this is what I know. This is as much as I know, and I'm going to take this next step. And if it turns out that I need to move in a different direction, that's what it does. But I'm not going to live self-consciously. I'm not going to start beating myself up or questioning or trying to figure it all out in advance.
Yeah. That's why when Frozen 2 came out and we're in a situation of, like, if all the life we've built was actually going to fall apart again, and really questioning what the future held, and sitting in the theater, and she starts singing "You are lost, hope is gone, but you must go on and do the next right thing."
Yes.
And that song, I just started like weeping in this theater, because I was like, that's exactly where I am. And when you feel those moments and you know that that's true for you, it's overwhelming. But I couldn't help but feel like there was this power in that statement of just being like, no, right here, right now, you're doing what you know is right. And what if I had stalled out there? What if I had lost myself in all of my whys, or the, oh no, what's going to happen, instead of leaning into this is what is mine to do right now. I talk to people sometimes about a holy haunting, like being haunted in the best way possible, where the thing that you know is yours to do will not let you go. It will like haunt you until you do it.
Yeah.
I remember walking through a graveyard one day, and for some people that's a little morbid, but for like Abby and I, we like walking through them. There's really beautiful.
Yeah, that is morbid and that's weird, but go ahead.
Yeah. There's this one that's like a national park in Cincinnati. I think it's called Spring Grove Cemetery, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Amazing, like floral, and it's just gorgeous, especially in the spring. And just seeing all of these stones and just thinking, how many incredible works of art or books or progress in a particular area of the arts or the sciences or psychology, how many of them died right here because the why killed the what? Because they didn't do their next right thing, because, oh, I can't do this, or I need to figure out this first before I do it, which is the one I hear all the time. Well, I need to figure this out. Once this sort of perfect scenario has arrived, then I can do the thing.
Right. Yeah.
Which means it's, in a lot of ways, it's like, once I completely overcome myself, then I can do this thing. It's like, no, bring yourself as you are, to this, and you will have done everything required.
I said to somebody the other day, I said, because that same scenario came up with a client the other day. And I said, well, you can shape your vision around your reality. You can limit it and force it into your current reality. Or you can start to shape your current reality around your bigger vision. And that has been a game changer for me personally. Because reality competes. My reality constantly competes against my dreams and my desires, my hopes, my loves. Oh yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, I'd love to do that even with my wife or, my kid or whatever. It's always something. Well, we don't have the time. We don't have this. Always, always, always. And so been practicing much more of this. How do I shape my current reality around my vision instead of the other way around? To one of the points you made about the why is I think that there's so much we make of the current concerns we have, the pains we have, the problems we have. We make more of those things, like the feeling of negativity, the sense of fear that we might have around, well, but what if I don't have enough? What if I find out that I'm actually not really good at this thing? What if I find out that this wasn't really the thing that I wanted? What if I run out of resources, money? What if nobody likes it? What if, and all these what ifs that cause us.
I'm not good enough? What if I'm not enough? What if
I'm not enough? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So those things are the things that we're trying to solve through the why. Like, wait.
Oh, yeah. We're trying to solve those anxieties, those concerns, those insecurities through the why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have had this abiding thought with me for some time. Why am I making more of that? Why am I pouring so much emotional energy into those things? Why do I see those things as problems even? The problem of that song, you quoted that song from Frozen 2. Well, it's really hard right now, and there's a lot of rough things going on. Yeah, absolutely. It feels like caca. And you feel that, and your emotions are really low. But then what you do with your emotions is you start thinking about them, and that makes them worse. Like, oh, yeah, it's really bad, isn't it? It's really bad. Feeling bad is really bad. It's really awful. And instead, what if we were to say, oh, yeah, this is all part of the path. This is all part of it. This is all part of it. So I got to welcome it. And still move towards my what? Still take the next right step. And bring those with me. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I feel fearful. People probably won't like it. People probably won't like it at all. Yeah, I'm probably not enough. That's probably true. I probably don't have what I need right now. Yeah, that's probably true. But nonetheless, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to take the next right step. Instead of making so much about this, what we're feeling, interpreting, creating narratives around all of this stuff. To just, that's okay, that's true. That's how I feel. It's not true necessarily of me, but it's true of how I feel and how I perceive things right now. But I'm still taking the next right step because that's my what. Yeah. And surprisingly, a lot of those things start to resolve themselves, don't they? It's funny how when we take the next right step, a lot of these other existential questions and concerns start to diminish. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to solve our why. We're trying to get to the why to answer those problems so that we don't feel them as much, so that we can move forward. Try to solve these problems in our heads and in our hearts. And much of the time, by taking that next right step, those things get resolved anyways. They go away. They don't carry nearly as much power as they did before.
And so we recite to ourselves again and again, we make the road while walking. We make the road by walking. So thanks for joining us. If you are stuck in this or any other way, you can reach out to us and set up a coaching appointment at theartofgrowth.org. And also look there for how to contact us about bringing us into your organization to help your business communicate better through the use of the Enneagram. We have added a blog to theartofgrowth.org where we can hold key content that we think is important to hold on to for the long haul that you can see there. You can check out our store there or sign up for our newsletter to keep you informed of the most important things going on, and also some really interesting growth tips that work better in a newsletter than they do on a podcast. So make sure you're subscribed, and if you leave us a review, it really helps people find the show. But this week, my friends, may you stop and pause. See if you are spinning in any way that is keeping you from your next right step, that is keeping your light from shining or keeping you from bringing forth what is yours to bring forth. because you're stuck circling around the why. And it's time to get to the what. It's time for the next right step. It's time to move forward because it makes a difference. Grace and growth, my friends.